Hey everyone, my name is Victor and this is Claude. We're going to be presenting and describing our math app program here for you today. So just a quick rundown. This is a Java file and Java program, and what we're doing here on the top where it says import javaswing.jOptionPane is we're bringing in a specific programming from a specific class that'll allow us to use something called the dialog box. So when we run this code, what'll happen is a dialog will be brought up, and you'll see that later on. Then we go on to define a couple strings, which are basically just inputs that we're going to be using later on. And we go on where you see the words doubled, or you see the words double a few times to define those strings. So what that's doing is it's saying give me an input. So it's basically saying the computer wants a number based on A, B, C, or D that'll later be used to execute a mathematical equation. So really quick, I'm going to define the few double variables here for a quadratic calculator. So what this is going to be doing is it's going to be taking the variables and putting them into a quadratic formula calculator, and it's going to come up with two different answers that'll define the quadratic formula.
Why did you define a string in addition? I mean, I can understand if this is a math program, declaring a double or an int, but why a string? How are you going to be using that?
Because when it asks the user to input a number, it first has to take the number as a string, and then later in the program we're going to explain how it says, I'll show you right now. In integer.parseInt, it takes a string that the user inputted and it converts it into an int or a double.
Right.
So, and also with the double, we didn't use int because if it's like a fraction or a decimal, if it's just an integer, it doesn't display the fraction or the decimal, so that's why double has to be implemented.
So now we're going to be going on to explaining the code of the quadratic calculator. So you'll see here it'll say jOptionPane.showMessageDialog, welcome to the quadratic formula or calculator. And like I said before, that's the dialog that's brought up when you run the program that'll actually say welcome to the quadratic calculator. Then you hit OK. It'll go on to say in this app you'll be entering variables, and it'll go on to say if your answer is NaN, then you have a non-real number. So you can calculate imaginary or non-real numbers with the calculator or the quadratic formula. And so then we go on to please press enter and click OK to continue to enter variables. So then we have another jOptionPane.showInput dialog. So what this is doing is it's asking you to input specific variables for your quadratic formula. These were previously defined, and variable A would be in a function the A, which would generally be located before an x squared. As you can see there, they were previously defined. Number 2, which would be the B, which would generally be before an x, and then variable C, which would just generally be the variable C, which defines the y. And we go on to parse them, and we go on to the mathematical formulas inside to this. So what happens here is the formula for the quadratic formula is put into effect.
You want to write it out there on the whiteboard?
Where is that?
You're using the marker?
Oh, yeah. So it's
Negative, right?
So there's the quadratic formula, and what we do is for x1 we do the negative b, which you can see written out, plus math square root, which is just a term to describe and define the square root. And then we have b times b, which is essentially b squared, minus 4ac, and the x was previously defined as a 4. And then, so we have quad form 1, which was previously defined as the answer to the equation. And we have x1 divided by z, which was previously defined as 2 times a. And that'll give us an answer for the quadratic formula using a positive square root. And then we have step 2, which is x2, which gives us an answer using a negative.
And how did you return both of those values simultaneously?
What do you mean?
Well, you've got two solutions, typically two real solutions to a quadratic.
Right.
How do you tell the user both at the same time?
Right. So now we go on to the next part of the code where it'll say show message dialog, which is essentially showing a dialog box saying the solution using a positive, which would mean for the x1, which is using the positive, is the results of that. And then we have the solution using a negative is using the results. So there's two different dialog boxes that come up saying this is what the answer is using the positive, and this is what the answer is using the negative.
So that's one technique for returning more than one value inside of a method, is to use a series of message boxes, right?
Right.
Otherwise, usually when you call on a method to do something, usually it processes kind of like one thing at a time and returns one thing, unless it returns an array of values.
Right.
But this is one way that you can do it, just outputting to the screen every time you get a different result, but within the same method.
Right. And then we finish up by saying thank you for using this app, and then we go on to a point slope. Oh yeah. Then we go on to a point slope calculator, which Claude here will explain.
So for the point slope calculator, these are the variables that we define. We define slope form for the equation, and then these are the variables. So it's it's x1, x2, y1, and y2, and so first start off by saying now it shows a J option pane message dialog. Victor said shows a dialog box that displays the message. Now welcome to the slope calculator. Then it shows another dialog box that says in this program you will enter x and y values of two given points. This N2 makes it go to another line, so it's not in completely like one line and you might not see it all. So it goes to a line below it.
You're talking about that backslash n?
Yeah, backslash n. And then it says to calculate the slope. So first we have the user. This allows the user to input the x1 value, the J option pane that show input dialog. So first it says please enter variable x1. Then another message box shows up, please enter variable x2, y1, and y2. The formula for the point slope form is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And here we like Ms. Moreau asked before, the strings were taken from the input from the user, and here it changes the strings from strings to ints or doubles with the integer.parseInt. This is the slope form. So k is equal to y2, j is equal to y1, I think that's a L is equal to x2, and then h is x1. That's the formula to calculate the slope.
Just out of curiosity, Claude,
Yes.
why, if the formula is y2, y1, why did you guys not use x1, x2, y1, y2 as variables?
Because while we were doing the program, first we did the quadratic formula,
okay.
and then we decided to put the point slope form in there, so we couldn't use the same variables again. So we redefined different variables, and we just put the comments.
And one of the reasons you can is because you're doing it within the same method.
Exactly.
So the variables are local to that method. If you were to use different methods, you could, believe it or not, you can, in Java, you could use the same variables indefinitely.
Yeah.
You could use the same variable an indefinite number of times because as long as it's in different, as long as they have different scope.
Yeah.
As long as they're, for example, in different methods. So x1 can be used in method 1 and it'll store a different value as x1 in method 2, but you have to make sure that both are only local to the method.
Yeah. It's like in C++, right, where you do the different functions.
Right.
Remember?
Exactly. In C++, for example, one student actually had both roots of the quadratic, but in different functions, like positive root, negative root. But they used the same variables because they were in different functions.
And then after it shows the message dialog, and it says the slope is plus slope form, which takes this equation and the users inputted integers and solves it for the slope. And then it shows a message that says, thank you for using this app.
Okay, run it, and let's see how this thing goes. Now I'm going to use, just for argument's sake, I'm going to use x squared plus 6x plus 8, which factors into x plus 4, x plus 2. So you should get negative 4 and negative 2 as your answers. Okay? So what happened?
I have to rerun it because
Yeah, close that.
yeah.
Close, yeah.
This one. Now I can just start again.
Recompile. No, you gotta recompile.
Oh.
Minimize the window behind it. Okay.
So this just says welcome to the quadratic calculator.
Use the microphone, otherwise we
So that just said welcome to the quadratic calculator. And we have another message dialog box that'll say in this app you'll be entering the variables a, b, and c to solve the quadratic formula. If your answer is NaN, then your answer is a non-real or imaginary number, which you can get from using the quadratic formula. And so here it says please enter or click OK to continue to enter the variables.
Okay, so let's do 1.
So we're going to do 1 for A,
We're going to do 6 for B,
6 for B,
and then 8 for C.
8
and
for
you
C.
should get negative 4, negative 2.
The answer should be negative 4 or negative 2. So that was using a positive, which is negative 2. That's using a negative, which is negative 4.
Okay. Now let's run it again.
Wait, we still have to do the other.
Yeah, no, but you can close that and run it again. I want to do, I want to see what happens when, close that.
You want to see what happens when we get negative or non-real?
Yeah, exactly. So let's just do 1, 1, and 1. You should get imaginary roots.
So it says
No. Okay. Or NaN, right?
yeah.
And then after you're done with, when you're done with the quadratic calculator, it takes you to the slope calculator. And says in this program you will enter the x and y values of 2 given points to calculate the slope. What do you want to use in this program?
Let's not do a vertical line.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can get a slope of 0. So do 1, comma 5.
Oh, yeah. But first you have to put in the x1 and then the x2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so put 3.
3 for the x2?
Yeah.
Alright. And then y1.
Do, 5. 5. You should get a slope of 0.
Slope is 0. probably should have done that. I'm not really sure why we didn't. Maybe because we weren't thinking of it at the time, or the time didn't give us the time to do it. But if we had more time, we probably would have made a menu to make it more easier for the user to pick if he wants to use a quadratic formula calculator or the slope calculator first.